welcome back to another episode of Treknicity, the show where we talk about, of course, everything to do with Star Trek. I'm your host, Lars coming to you from somewhere beyond the cosmos, or in this case, as always, Southern California, because there's a reason why they call it Hollyweird. And joining me again here shortly will be my co-host and companion for this journey, the Captain. But of course, first we must bring him forth in a way that is makes no sense, but yet makes complete sense. We shall go and bring him forth now. Frank.
Your ass can still be kicked on my ship, son.
Did we interrupt something?
Just some young Klingon punk thinking he was going to try taking his commander on.
Oh, I see. I remember a young Klingon like that once. No, wait, hang on. No, I don't. I'm a real person, and you're an imaginary character. Never mind. Anyway,
I beg to differ.
Please don't beg. It's unbecoming of you.
Okay.
In this episode, we're going to talk about the primary races of the Star Trek universe, being primarily humans, like myself. See, human. And of course Klingons and Romulans. Sorry, I was reliving another life.
It happens that way sometimes.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you know all about reliving other lives.
I've had a bit of experience.
So let's get right into the rat killing, and let's talk about humans to start with, because of course they are the most prevalent race within the series. We see them the most because, of course, underneath all that makeup, we're all human, I think. I don't know. I've met some other people that could be kind of questionable, but never mind.
Different issue altogether.
Yes. So humans in Star Trek, of course, make up the majority of the creatures that we see, largely because, of course, since we're all actually human anyways, and people are just acting and wearing makeup and stuff, human is the easiest one for them to show.
Hell of a lot cheaper, too. In your era, money is very important on getting shows produced.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting you're in a different... Oh, never mind. It does my head in when I try to think about it. So, so we see a lot of humans, and then, of course, the aliens themselves are usually bipedal humanoids because, again, much easier and much cheaper to produce a TV show using that methodology. However, the Federation is made up primarily of humans, largely from the planet Earth, and then there are humans from all over different colonies and so on and so forth. But I guess the good thing is that because we are human after all, it's a great thing that we can identify with the humans on the show. With the Federation being capitaled on Earth in Paris, France, we tend to see a lot of humans throughout the series, no matter one. Original series, the animated series, TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery. Although Discovery does have an interesting character by the name of Linus, that is, I believe he is Saurian, if memory serves me correctly. But still, despite the fact large, very alien eyes and very alien-looking face and head, still bipedal humanoid.
For the most part. Now, the weird thing I always thought about with the humans, in just the way time has flown, they've been proven to be about the most adaptable species within the Federation, but they also were about the last ones to be involved in interstellar travel and warp drive and phaser technology, and they kind of started way behind the times.
Okay, I can tell you there's a reason behind that. There's actually a really good reason behind that. And you wouldn't believe me, but I'll just go on and say Netflix.
Okay.
Because when there's shows like Stranger Things on and whatnot, oh, and hey, don't forget the Orville's on Hulu. So, yeah, it makes sense that that humanity was last to the warp drive race because I mean, come on. I have a feeling that World War III in the Star Trek universe actually began due in part largely to the fact that somebody's favorite show got canceled.
I could probably believe that from what I've seen of 21st century civilization. It's like computers and television and movies and just media in general are more in charge of the people than the people are in charge of them.
Yeah, I would definitely be in agreement with that. But one thing I guess I do like about the fact that they try to keep all the races bipedal, humanoid, and or human in Star Trek is because it is much more, it's much easier for them to be able to keep a level of relatability to the to other races that they deal with. I mean, we've seen other aliens throughout the whole thing, and that's cool. I mean, the whole thing is that they do a lot of what am I trying to say here? They do a lot of mixing up things. Like they do a lot of work on the head area to try to make something look alien, and that's fine because back in the '60s when this whole thing started, in order to make look Mr. Spock look alien, one of the easiest things they could do is put points on his ears. So they gave him pointed ears and pointed eyebrows, and bam, right there. I mean, he didn't even look. He looked so unhuman, so inhuman that they referred to him as the demon within industry circles at Paramount.
And that's also because the ideology of what a demon may look like in a human form would have, like for instance, Pan, the Greek god Pan kind of had that look with the winged eyebrows and the pointed ears and possibly like a goat tail or something. But yet humanoid demons had always kind of been framed within that ideology of look.
Of course. And, so of course they take that and expand on it a little bit, to talk about the next set of humanoid races. Let's talk about the Romulans. The Romulans are, of course, basically ancestral Vulcans. They say that there's some subtle differences, but from the stories we know within canon in Star Trek, when Vulcan was experiencing the height of its aggressive period, in which they almost completely destroyed themselves through nuclear holocaust, a group of Vulcans decided to leave the planet and search for a new home where they didn't have to be, saddled with the responsibilities of trying to not kill themselves and not be subjected to pure logic, as was being the style at the time.
Right, and they were more devoted to learning and following their passions at the start of their separation from Vulcan. They were like considered people under the Eagle Talon or something like that, became their nickname because they kind of adapted more of a fiercer warrior type persona.
I believe what you're looking for was under the Raptor's wings.
There you go, the Raptor's wings. And though they didn't embrace the doctrines of pure logic or logical practice, as they evolved as a species, they did kind of rein it in and start becoming more your plotsters, your chess players. They would stay more behind the scenes and manipulate other peoples, or drop a bomb here, or leave a word there, and then just kind of wait for someone to invite them to involve themselves.
Exactly. Given the more temperate climate on the planet Romulus, they basically altered themselves as a species because one, they were no longer subjected to the harsh environments of Vulcan, but two, also it gave them a chance to change their entire ideology because of the sheer number of winged or of avian species that existed on the planet when they got there. Uh, so what you end up with is a race of people who went from passionate, just pure passion and rejection of logic, to that of being devious. Um, and yeah, I mean,
Excellent strategists.
yes,
There is no doubt that Romulans are probably amongst the best strategists within the Star Trek universe. Like I said, most of it is from a more cowardly position of behind the scenes and manipulating everybody else, but nevertheless, they're planning their plots, what they devise is uncanny. It's just well advanced to most other races, species, etc.
agree. You know, I mean, the whole thing is that they develop the Romulans as a way of um, being of having an enemy for the Federation that didn't necessarily have to be um, as directly aggressive as, say, the Klingons. The Klingons, you know, I mean, cliched to the max when it comes to honor-bound warriors. You know, one of the things that Malcolm Reed said to Travis Mayweather in the pilot of Enterprise is, you know, he says, "Didn't you read the report on these Klingons?" And Travis shakes his head, and he said, and Reed replies, he says, "Apparently they sharpen their teeth before they go into battle."
Exactly.
And you know, I guess that kind of does have a certain cliche value to it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are cookie cutter. We've seen Klingons with a certain level of complexity that you actually have a lot of respect for who they are and what they represent.
Or more accurately, what they kind of evolved into. Okay, Enterprise, the series Enterprise, talked a little bit about the augmentation of the Klingon species. We also saw like surgical alterations in Discovery between Klingon and human, which were both ways of explaining how in the original series they took on a more humanoid appearance.
You know,
Even though they were more, even originally, the Klingons came from a more Oriental background.
I would say that the original Klingons looked like Puerto Ricans dressed in gold lame.
Yeah, and they were their societal ideas and so on were loosely based on like a combination of communist China and the Soviet Union.
Yes, and actually, believe it or not, that was what their intention was to portray the Klingons as communist against the Federation's capitalist. Even though the Federation weren't technically capitalists, they were more they were the Americans in that equation, and the Klingons were the Chinese / Russians. So, and I guess if you wanted to continue that anatomy, the Romulans would probably be something like the North Koreans.
Very likely. Now,
Now,
the Klingons over time adopted a far more Japanese, which is still Oriental, but Japanese samurai approach to their race's ambitions, their imperial expansion, their code of honor. as the stories of Kahless became more and more told and promoted throughout the generations, they developed more of like a Japanese, almost samurai type code of honor.
Speaking, to just take a step out of our conversation for just a second, just occurred to me that if the Klingons were known for their shoes, I guess their most famous shoe store would be Kahless Shoes.
Boo! Yes. I wish I'd have thought of that.
Well, you know what they say about a cheap pun.
Better than the expensive ones.
That's right.
Anyway.
So
yes, Kahless shoes.
The idea is that you're right. They did evolve as a species throughout the series. They did start off more as a straight Asian or Central Asian authority figure, and were replaced more with a Japanese samurai or Bushido code of honor.
That would be a very accurate parallel too. And as we saw through Worf in the various movies and series, the quote-unquote true Klingon had honor at the back of virtually anything and everything a Klingon would do. Unless, as we see in like Sins of the Father and a couple of the movies, you have come from a disgraced family, because certain characteristics seem to have been taught or possibly inherited through the different Klingon houses. Like when we look at the House of Duras.
I just want to say I cannot believe that the Klingons value honor over everything when they're doing anything, because quite frankly I cannot figure out a way that there is any honor in, say, renewing someone's license at the DMV, because that place has no honor.
That could well be true. That could very well be true.
However, and of course, we know that through observation in shows like, say, The Orville, that in Star Trek nobody ever goes to the bathroom, ever.
Yeah.
So I would agree with that, because quite frankly, I would not want to say that the Klingons are known for honor in the bathroom at all.
It would be kind of interesting trying to figure out how that would be done, though. What the honorable stance or sitting would be, perhaps.
Well, yes. I would say that the idea is, look, this could be a topic on its own. And look, we normally keep everything here on Treknicity fairly straight arrowed, by the book, talking about Star Trek, keeping it serious. But today, I think I just decided to let things be a little silly, because why not?
Exactly.
But of
we
course,
do a good show, and once in a while, I think we just need to cut loose even on it. We have the best of intentions. We communicate the information. So why not take a show or two and just kind of let loose and have some fun with it?
So, going back to the Klingon situation, what if it's constipated? Does he let out one of the warrior cries? I mean, are they trying to let Stovall know that a warrior is entering the afterlife? Or, I mean,
I have never thought about that. Honestly, with the Klingons aboard my vessel, and there have been more than one, but with them on there, I never thought to ask them if there was any honor in restrooming. So it's hard to tell. Possibly. Maybe, I know that Klingons, if they are to pass gas to most other races, it would be almost impossible to detect, because most of them are extremely adverse to anything other than, as Dr. Bashir put it, I think, an earthly essence with a touch of lilac.
Yes.
They're not real big on bathing, hygiene, and that kind of thing.
Correct. And given the fact that, I would like to think that there's got to be some similarities between how the humans go about things, how Romulans go about things, and how about Klingons go about things. The thing is, do you honestly think, given the fact that bathrooming procedures are probably largely the same, that there would be such animosity between the Klingons and the Romulans? I mean, is it possible? Is it possible that maybe, just maybe, the Romulans and Klingons are just constipated and, you know,
Hence their awful disposition.
yes, and they are quite literally just trying to irritate the shit out of each other.
That could be. Never thought about that. Although, back on a little more serious note, off and on throughout the Klingon and Romulan histories, they've had shaky but temporary alliances with technological exchanges, advancements in cloaking technology or shared advancements,
Yes,
things like that.
that's correct. Well, we know for certain that the Romulans during the first of two technological exchanges that they talked about, the Romulans gained the D7 battlecruiser, and the Klingons gained the Bird of Prey or the Katinga class vessel with the functioning cloaking device. Which, of course, everybody's like, "Man, those Klingon designs are so cool for those birds of prey." I'm thinking, did you ever wonder where they got them?
Yeah,
No, they're Klingon. What race in Star Trek do you know that is obsessed with birds?
exactly.
And of course, we saw in the Enterprise incident that the Romulans did indeed gain access to the D7 battlecruiser because the Romulans had them with cloaking devices installed.
Right. And the commander, portrayed by Mark Leonard, who I think is the only actor so far in Star Trek history to have played every one of the main aliens, to put it right, in the series, was, for lack of a better word, he was very almost Klingon in his behavior with how he handled his crew, from what we'd seen from like Errand of Mercy and various others.
But that's
Although
not the
Balance of Terror came first.
Yeah, Balance of Terror was the absolute first, and that was using the original Romulan Bird of Prey vessel. It was the female Romulan commander who commanded one of the D7 model battle cruisers in the Enterprise incident, where Spock and Kirk successfully stole one of the cloaking devices.
Yeah.
But
And,
you are right that Mark Leonard actually played. He played three different characters on Star Trek. The first being, of course, the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror, which, by the way, if anybody doesn't know at this point, that is my favorite episode of Star Trek ever.
Because it reminds you of like submarine battles of old and ideas of death before dishonor.
I think it largely because it reminded me that prejudice still exists in the future.
Yeah.
Because Lieutenant Stiles, of course, gets all aggro with Spock over the fact that they finally figure out that the Romulans and the Vulcans are from an offshoot of, well, the Romulans are an offshoot of the Vulcans, which of course is BS because, we find out in Enterprise that there are people in the Vulcan High Command that actually knew this because they were working with the Romulans. But of course that's all retconned and things get a little muddy. Anyways, as I was saying, he played the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror, and then of course he went on to play Ambassador Sarek, Spock's father, in a couple of different original series episodes. Then of course he made an appearance in TNG, and of course then showed up in Star Trek 3 and 4.
And he was also the Klingon commander aboard the Klingon vessel in the first Star Trek motion
Correct.
picture.
He was the first Imperial Klingon that we ever saw, which was the redesign of the Klingon look from the original series through to the motion picture. And interesting enough, this is something that just came out during Comic-Con. I found out that they are going to be re-releasing Star Trek the Motion Picture in 4K, which is going to be fantastic because it's 2 hours of boring space music and extended shots of the Enterprise in 4K.
Do we really need that?
No, we don't. But, hey, still a better love story than Twilight.
Never seen it, so I couldn't tell you.
Trust me, disbelieve me on this one. So, look, I know we've waffled quite a bit back and forth. We talked a little bit serious on something, some not so serious. But it is important to understand that despite the fact that they keep all of the major races in Star Trek, and we're not talking just the Klingons, the Romulans, the humans. We're talking the Vulcans, the Andorians, the Tellarites, the Edoans, the Cardassians, the Bajorans, you name it. Okay, they're all
Ferengi.
yeah, and the Ferengi. They're all bipedal humanoids, and
Yeah.
a lot of that comes down to it. One, it is a cost issue because that way you don't have to worry about trying to make a functioning human with 4 legs, or trying to do it with CG. But also it is believability. You could sit there and you could suspend disbelief at an alien with these giant ears, but trying to suspend disbelief of an alien with 3 legs, whatever.
I'll say there are a lot of species with 3 legs, ain't there?
Well, yeah, not quite, but unless they're Mini-Me from the Austin Powers movie, But anyways, so that's going to
My
be all.
third leg gave out years ago.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit more than I needed to know.
Well, we were talking about 3 legs. Anyway.
Yes. On that note, that's gonna be all for this episode of Treknicity. In the next episode, we're actually going to talk about a topic that I've talked about before, but in kind of in a different way. I've been very clear and in my discussions that I'm not a big fan of Star Trek Discovery. However, we're going to approach it from the perspective of looking at it from whether or not there are there's references to canon and non-canon, and where different things get affected and where they get introduced and how they affect fandom as well. So join us again next time. Also, be aware that right now the Red Shirt Geeks is celebrating its 5th anniversary. I know.
Congratulations.
5 years. I still can't figure out how the hell we managed to do 5 years. But anyways, we'll be giving away 3 items with the help of Signal Fire Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. Or, sorry, not Atlanta, but in Georgia. And if you want to check out the 5th anniversary video, I'll have a link to it down here in the description below. If you have not already subscribed to the Red Shirt Geeks channel, subscribe to the channel and you will automatically be entered into the draw for one of 3 prizes. One being a copy of Jamie Chambers' authored 5th edition D&D module, A Delve in the Cave, or the Jamie Chambers co-authored RPG, Metamorphosis Alpha, or the Jennifer Steen's helmed light RPG, Project Ninja Panda Taco.
Now that sounds interesting to me.
Well, I'll have you know, my wife and I played a very interesting game called Taco versus Burrito, and we love it. So,
Who won?
I think she won. Last time we played, she won. So,
Was she the taco or the burrito?
she was the burrito, and I was the taco.
Ah. So burrito is superior to taco, eh?
As it should be sometimes, but I don't know. It is California, and they do have the what we affectionately refer to as the roach coaches or the taco trucks. So, anyways, the winners of that will be announced on that episode of Treknicity that comes out on July 29th, 2019. All right, so like I said, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed to Red Shirt Geeks, then subscribe. Hit the little notification bell there so you know when we're going to be invading your personal space, and then we will draw that and we'll get some cool prizes out to you. So in the meantime, I have been
Sounds
Lars.
like a plan.
Yes, I have been Lars DeSenza, your host, and with me has been the captain. As always, here on Treknicity,
Rock out with your Spock out.
See you next time, folks. Bye.
Hey folks, Captain here. Lars thinks I'm gone, but I'm not. He had a great idea though. If you like today's topic or have one of your own, leave us a quick comment below. And while you're at it, hit the like, subscribe, and ring that little bell so you never miss a show. And remember, it's not just Trek, it's your Treknicity. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.